Chapter 861. Not long after David and the others left, Long Xingqiu surrounded the hotel where David was with a large number of Long family members, but it was a pity that David had already left, and Long Xingqiu was in vain. David left, rushing towards Yaishan Valley day and night. If you want to find a hidden place, it can only be Yaishan Valley, and as the owner of the valley, it is reasonable to stay in Yaishan Valley. When David rushed back to Yaishan Valley, Su Chongsheng saw that David was in a hurry, but he didn't ask much. David directly asked Su Chongsheng to prepare a quiet place for himself, sat cross-legged, and began to practice. Now that David is in the fasting period, there will be no problem if he does not eat or drink, and with the existence of Long Jing, David will not stop practicing because of lack of spiritual energy. Feeling the aura emanating from Long Jing rippling in his danshan, David personally entered a chaos. Kyoto, the dragon family. As the head of the family, Long Jingguo sat in the seat of the head of the family, and Long Xingqiu knelt in front of Long Jingguo with his head bowed, looking like he was being punished. Patriarch, Zhao Liguo of Shadowless Villa is very hard-mouthed, and he doesn't tell the whereabouts of David at all. Long Xingqiu said in a low voice. Without finding David, Long Xingqiu took the Long family to the Shadowless Villa. After all, David was taken away by Zhao Liguo at that time, but now Zhao Liguo does not know David's whereabouts. Then Zhao Liguo must know that David devoured Long Jing, so why would he let him go so easily? This is a bit too strange. Long Jingguo narrowed his eyes slightly, always feeling that something was wrong. Patriarch, then Zhao Liguo did let David go. According to Zhao Liguo, because David was a friend of his son Zhao Chuang pleaded for mercy and let him go. Long Xingqiu explained. I don't care if what Zhao Liguo said is true or not, you immediately bring someone to find that David for me, and bring him back to the Long family alive. I want to see if this David is my precious nephew. When Long Jingguo learned that his sister's son was still alive, he was very pleasantly surprised, because he had imprisoned his sister for more than 20 years, and wanted to get the information he wanted from his sister, but it was a pity that his sister was too strict. For more than 20 years without saying a word. Now that his nephew is still alive, this may be the breakthrough. Is there any mother in the world who will watch her son die in front of her and remain indifferent? Long Jingguo wanted to start with David. If David was really his nephew, he would threaten his sister with David's life. Long Xingqiu took orders to leave, while Long Jingguo got up and walked towards the dungeon in the backyard of Long's house. At this time, in the dungeon, a woman in her 40s was being locked in it. Although the environment in the dungeon was very harsh, the woman still had a smile on her face at this time. This woman is David's biological mother, Long Ruotong, as well as Long Jingguo's sister. Miss, it's time to eat. At this time, a maid came over with the food and placed it neatly on the table. After the maid looked around, she whispered to Long Ruotong, Miss, Long Wu secretly sent a message, saying that the young master took Long Jing, and his strength improved by leaps and bounds. It may not take long, you mother and son. We can meet. After listening to Long Ruotong, the smile on his face froze slightly, and he suddenly sighed, I don't want him to take any Long Jing, as long as he can live safely. The Long family now knows the news about him, no, I'll let him go easily. Don't worry too much, miss. With Steward Long and Long Wu to protect the young master, he will be fine. The maid comforted. Chapter 862. Hey! Long Ruotong sighed. Just when the maid wanted to say something, she found that Long Jingguo had actually walked in, so she was so frightened that she hurriedly put down the food and left. Long Jingguo glanced at the maid who went out, and then said to Long Ruotong, Sister, do you eat these meals that I sent someone to prepare? Long Jingguo's language was full of concern, as if the person who imprisoned Long Ruotong was not him at all. Long Ruotong rolled her eyes at Long Jingguo and said nothing. She was already used to Long Jingguo's face. Over the years, Long Ruotong has never said a word to Long Jingguo, no matter how severely tortured his body is, he has never spoken. Long Jingguo seemed to be used to Long Ruotong's expression. He sat down at the table, picked up his chopsticks, and tasted some dishes. The fried celery with sliced meat is a bit salty. The spicy tofu is not tender, and the sliced lungs of this couple, I remember you liked to eat it when you were a child. While tasting the food, Long Jingguo followed Long Ruotong, but Long Ruotong didn't speak, as if Long Jingguo was talking to himself. Long Jingguo took a few bites, wiped his mouth, and stood up. Sister, I didn't expect you to have a son in this world, and your son is very likely to get Long Jing. It seems that he knows his background and wants to save your mother. I hope he can come to the Long family earlier, so that I can get to know my great-nephew well. After all, he must have suffered a lot after being away for so many years. Long Jingguo began to speak unhurriedly. Hearing this, a trace of worry flashed across Long Ruotong's originally expressionless face, but it was only fleeting, but even so, it was seen by Long Jingguo. Seeing the worry flashing across Long Ruotong's face, Long Jingguo smiled, very proud. For more than 20 years, my sister has been reluctant to tell the secrets I want to know, and I can't do anything about you, but now I have a nephew. I think that if my nephew asks you to speak, you won't be here. Keep silent, right? You mother and son will meet soon, and I have already sent someone to invite my great-nephew. Ha ha ha, ha ha. After Long Jingguo finished speaking, he laughed wildly. He felt that this was a godsend. If it weren't for this sudden nephew, the secret he wanted to know would be difficult to know for the rest of his life. Long Ruotong looked at Long Jingguo, who was laughing wildly. Her eyes were full of hatred. She knew that Long Jingguo was a lunatic now and could do anything. If you dare to hurt my son, I will never spare you. Long Ruotong spoke. This was the first time she had spoken to Long Jingguo in nearly 20 years. Long Jingguo heard that Long Ruotong was talking to him, and after a slight stun, he burst into laughter again. My good sister, he is my nephew, how could I hurt him? Don't worry. Long Jingguo walked out of the dungeon with satisfaction and pride on his face. The more Long Ruotong cared about his son, the more hope Long Jingguo would know the secret he wanted to know. In the days that followed, many people were frantically looking for David, and Shadowless Villa became the target of public criticism. After all, it was Zhao Liguo who took David away in the end. At this moment, David is in retreat and practice in Medicine God Valley, and he doesn't know anything about the outside world. In the blink of an eye, a month has passed. During this month, David never moved, let alone eaten anything. With the aura that Long Jing constantly emits, David doesn't have to worry about the exhaustion of his aura, he just needs to practice hard. Chapter 863. During this month, David's body was slowly changing. David is different from those warriors. At this moment, David's body is constantly getting stronger while he is cultivating. Every time his body is strengthened, he will lose a layer of skin like a snake ant, and the new skin will appear like metal. Of luster. Slowly opening his eyes that had not been opened for a month, David's body exuded a golden light, which was as dazzling as the sun and the moon, and his bones were indestructible. What's going on in the Valley Master's room? Su Chongsheng was a little surprised when he saw that golden light burst out from David's room. The other elders all shook their heads. They didn't know what happened. They only knew that David had never walked out of the room this month. Come on, let's go and see. Su Chongsheng said a word, and walked towards David's room with a few people. At this moment, David slowly got up, the spiritual power in his body was surging, and he had never felt it before. Looking at his golden fists, David wanted to punch out and see his current strength. But in the end, he managed to control it. If he punched him out now, the whole house might collapse. I didn't expect that in a month's time, I would be able to rise to the realm of the peak of Bigu. If it takes time, if I break through the realm of Bigu and enter the realm of forming a pill, maybe I will be able to fight with the Long family. David did not expect that Long Jing had brought him such a huge benefit. But soon, David also discovered one thing, that is, the luster of the dragon crystal in the body has dimmed a lot, and the aura emanating from the dragon crystal is not full at the beginning. Does this dragon crystal also have a service life? David didn't know about Long Jing, and Long Wu didn't explain it to him at that time, which made David a little confused. Gu Master, are you all right? At this moment, Su Changshen's voice came. They were afraid that something would happen to David, so they rushed over. Hearing Su Changshen's voice, the golden light on David's body dissipated and he opened the door. When Su Changsheng and the others saw David's first glance, they all showed a hint of surprise. Because it's only been a month, they can feel the change in David's aura. At this moment, they can clearly feel that they have reached the peak of the Great Master, and they are about to break through the realm of Wuzong. How long have I been practicing? How can the realm improve so fast? Gu Master, are you all right? After waking up from the shock, Su Changsheng continued to ask. It's okay. David shook his head, and then asked Su Changsheng, how is Xiaolan? When David returned to Yaishan Valley, Xiaolan hadn't woken up yet, so he couldn't wait to go to retreat, and now he doesn't know how long it took. The owner of the valley, rest assured, Miss Xiaolan's health is very good. During this time, she has been going out to find the owner of the valley, but she was stopped by us. Xiaolan didn't know about David's retreat, and Su Changsheng and the others didn't dare to talk about it, so after Xiaolan woke up, she shouted to find David. Elder Su, how long have I been in retreat? It was at this moment that David remembered to ask himself how long he had been in retreat. Gu Master, you have been in seclusion for a month. The day after tomorrow is the Mid-Autumn Festival. I have instructed the people in the valley to set up the venue. Then we will have a Mid-Autumn Festival together. Su Changsheng thought that David had just become a valley owner after all, and many people didn't know him yet. He just took this opportunity to let everyone know David. It's been a month. David was taken aback. In his opinion, his own cultivation was only a momentary thing, but he didn't think it had been a month, and the Mid-Autumn Festival was coming soon. Hearing the Mid-Autumn Festival, David's parents instantly appeared in his mind. Although he knew that he was picked up, he still loved his parents deeply. And Sonia, Gulinger, I don't know how they are now. Chapter 864. David, you were hiding here, have you been hiding from me this month? At this time, an angry voice came, and then Xiaolan rushed over angrily. Seeing this, Su Changsheng and the others walked away immediately. Since David was fine, there was no need for them to stay. I've been in retreat, I just woke up and said I'm going to see you. Seeing Xiaolan come over angrily, David explained in a hurry. Look at me. Would you be so kind? Xiaolan gave David a blank look. If I'm not good, you're dead now. In order to save you, I almost took my life. David deliberately pretended to be angry and said. Seeing this, Xiaolan hurriedly apologized. Okay, I know, Elder Su and the others told me that you saved my life, you can do whatever you want. Saying that, Xiaolan actually leaned towards David's arms, but David took 2 steps back to avoid it. Seeing David dodging, Xiaolan immediately turned cold again. David, let me ask you, am I not beautiful? Am I not in good shape? Why do you dislike me so much? I didn't, you're pretty and in good shape, I didn't dislike you. David shook his head. I took the initiative to give her a hug, but you are still hiding, are you a man? Xiaolan pouted and said angrily. I have a girlfriend. David had to move Sonia out as a shield. I know, it's just a girlfriend, not a daughter-in-law. What if you have a daughter-in-law? I can be your lover, your confidant, and I don't want any status, as long as you treat me well. Xiaolan didn't care. When David listened to Xiaolan's bold language, his head went big. Okay, let's not talk about that. I'm going home in the next 2 days. The Mid-Autumn Festival is coming. I'll go back and see my family. You are in Medicine God's Valley. Let's celebrate with Elder Su and the others. David did not plan to spend the festival in Yaoshengu, but went back to Horindal to see his parents and Reuben. I want to go with you. I don't know anyone in Yaoshengu, I'm not here for the festival, I want to go back to Horindal with you. When Xiaolan heard that David wanted to keep herself in Yaoshan Valley, she immediately shouted. You go back with me, but be honest, I'm also a normal man, no, no. David looked at Xiaolan, not knowing what to say next. No what? Are you not allowed to seduce you? Xiaolan looked at David like that, and burst out laughing. Anyway, you have to be honest and don't move your feet. David was afraid that Xiaolan would be too proactive and could not hold it back. Don't worry, if you don't agree, I can still force you. Xiaolan looked at David playfully. David didn't say anything. If he continued, he didn't know what kind of foul language Xiaolan could say. After saying goodbye to Elder Su and the others, David took Xiaolan back to Horindal by plane. Before boarding the plane, David sent a message to Lin Tianhu, asking him to pick him up at Horindal Airport. But when David took Xiaolan off the plane, he didn't find Lin Tianhu's car, and no one came to pick him up. This guy won't stay with Chifeng in the provincial capital. David took out his mobile phone and called Lin Tianhu, but after several calls, no one answered. David frowned slightly. Although Lin Tianhu has a rough temperament, he is very meticulous in his work. When David wanted to find him, there was almost no time when he could not find him. This time, no one answered the phone. Seeing that Lin Tianhu didn't answer the phone, David called Chifeng again, but with the same result, no one answered. David's face turned gloomy for a moment, and he had a bad premonition in his heart. Chapter 865. What's wrong? Xiaolan asked when she saw David's expression was wrong. It's okay, let's go. David took Xiaolan out of the airport, ready to take a taxi home. But when David reached out to stop a taxi, a luxurious Rolls-Royce stopped in front of David. Mr. Chen, get in the car. The window was rolled down, and the driver was Bai Zhantang. David glanced at Bai Zhantang and looked a little surprised. He didn't understand how this guy was in Horindal, and how he knew that he had come back. Just when David was about to ask what was going on, Bai Zhantang said again, Mr. Chen, get in the car first, we will chat in the car. Seeing Bai Zhantang's appearance is very anxious. David sat directly in the co-pilot, Xiaolan sat in the back row, and Bai Zhantang stepped on the accelerator. Why are you in Horindal? David asked Bai Zhantang. Mr. Chen, not only am I in Horindal, but my grandfather is also here. You don't know that during this time, many people are inquiring about you and want to find you. Many people have come to Horindal alone. My grandfather was worried about the safety of Mr. Chen's family, so he rushed over with the Bai family. We have all been in Horindal for a month. Bai Zhantang said. Looking for me? David frowned. Yes, looking for you. It seems like what Longjing is talking about, I don't know very well, and many people who are looking for you claim to be from Kyoto, but I don't know them, not even my grandfather, but those people are all master. When Bai Zhantang was speaking, his voice trembled slightly, obviously frightened by those people. David suddenly realized that he knew that he devoured Longjing, and there must be a rumor, so many people came to him for Longjing. Because I couldn't find myself, I finally chose to come to Horindal to find it. Is my family all right? Are those people gone? David's heart tugged together, worried about the comfort of his parents. He sent his parents back to the country just to avoid his own parents being implicated. Oh, it's all right, these people are still very particular, they didn't find you, they all left, and they didn't embarrass us, it's just. When Bai Zhantang said this, he suddenly didn't know what to say. Just what? Say it. David urged. It's just that two people said that they were looking for revenge for you, and they injured Lin Tianhu and Chifeng. They are still in Horindal. My grandfather and Gu are with you all day long, serving delicious food and drinks. They have lived for 10 years. It's coming. It was Lin Tianhu's subordinate who came to report with his mobile phone. I just found out that Mr. Chen is back today, so my grandfather hurriedly sent me over to pick up Mr. Chen. By the way, let me tell you, hide for a while. Who are those two people? What happened to Lin Tianhu and Chifeng? When David heard that Lin Tianhu and Chifeng were injured, a murderous aura filled his body. It seems to be Tianwumen and Tianluo Pavilion. I haven't heard of them, but those two people are too powerful. They are all Wuzong. Grandpa can only stabilize each other first, and then tell Mr. Chen to hide. Bai Zhantang said. When he heard Tianwumen and Tianluo Pavilion, David suddenly understood. Ni Sidao, Xiahe Dun. David's eyes narrowed slightly, and the killing intent in his eyes was awe-inspiring. Yes, it seems to be these two names. Bai Zhantang nodded quickly, and then said, Mr. Chen, I will drive you out of the city first, you should find a place to hide. Xiaolan in the back heard Tianwumen and Tianluo Pavilion, her face changed suddenly, but she knew about these two sects. At that time, David followed Xiahe Dun, and he was not Xiahe Dun's opponent at all. Now there is a more powerful Ni Sidao. The two joined forces, and David was no longer an opponent. Chapter 866. David, why don't we go back to Medicine God Valley? After all, in Medicine God Valley, Su Chongsheng and the other elders were all Wuzongs, and David wanted to be safe when he lived there. David's face was gloomy and cold, as if he didn't hear Xiaolan's words. He said lightly to Bai Zhantang, take me to see Lin Tianhu and the others. Mr. Chen. Bai Zhantang was a little surprised, the other party was two Wuzongs, why didn't David flee quickly? David, don't be impatient. Xiaolan also persuaded. However, neither of them knew that in this month, David's strength had already changed from what it used to be. Drive me to see Lin Tianhu and the others, I don't want to say it again. David's face became more and more difficult to look at. The temperature in the car also dropped to freezing point at this moment. Bai Zhantang had no choice but to turn on the heater. After taking a look at David, Bai Zhantang sighed, turned the car, and headed towards Horindal People's Hospital. After arriving at the hospital, Bai Zhantang took David and Xiaolan to the 4th floor. At this moment, the entire 4th floor of the hospital was wrapped up by Bai Zhantang. Mr. Chen, Lin Tianhu and Chifeng are not life-threatening. I called Sun Simiao and I have given them 2 medicines, but their bones are broken, I am afraid they will be useless in the future. Bai Zhantang introduced as he walked. David was expressionless and walked forward quickly. At this moment, there were many Lin Tianhu and Chifeng's men in the corridor. When they saw David coming, they were all excited. Mr. Chen. Dozens of men stood on both sides and respectfully shouted towards David. David didn't say anything, just pushed open the door of the ward. Mr. Chen. Sun Simiao was in the ward, and when he saw David, he hurried over to say hello. Mr. Chen. At this time, there was another person in the ward, shouting at David. David looked at it and found that it was Zhao Wuji, the pavilion master of the Dharma Protector Pavilion in Kyoto. He did not expect that Zhao Wuji would come to Horindal as well. Pavilion Zhao, I didn't expect you to come. David glanced at Zhao Waoqi with a little gratitude. Zhao Waoqi smiled awkwardly, Mr. Chen, I just caught up. I originally planned to come to Horindal to invite Mr. Chen to participate in the international competition, but I didn't want such a thing to happen. As soon as Zhao Waoqi said it, David just remembered that he had promised to help Zhao Waoqi play a match a few months ago. Gate Master Zhao, I'll finish the matter first, I'll go with you. David had to deal with the current affairs before he could follow Zhao Waoqi to Kyoto. Mr. Chen is not in a hurry. There are still a few days before the competition. In addition, I have spoken with the Martial Arts Association in Kyoto. I hope they can come forward and help Mr. Chen mediate. Zhao Waoqi knew that the two Wuzongs who were looking for revenge on David were not so capable of intervening. Gate Master Zhao, I appreciate your kindness, and I will handle this matter myself. After David finished speaking, he set his eyes on the two beds in the ward. Lin Tianhu and Chifeng were wrapped like Zhongzi, lying on the beds with various instruments on their bodies. The two people are not life-threatening, but at this time they can't move or speak, only a pair of eyes can move. After seeing David, Lin Tianhu and Chifeng were very excited, their eyes blinked inappropriately, and tears flowed out of Chifeng's eyes. David stepped forward, holding Lin Tianhu in one hand and Chifeng in the other, and a trace of spiritual energy penetrated into the bodies of the two. After a few minutes, David's face became ugly. It seems that Bai Zhantang is right, the bones of the two people are almost broken, and even if they are connected, they will become useless people, and it is almost impossible to practice. Chapter 867. Mr. Chen, I used the best medicine from the Yaoang mansion. The two of them can hold on to their lives, but in the future they will only be able to use a wheelchair. Sun Simiao stepped forward and whispered. David did not speak, but his mind flashed through the Supreme Pill Lu, looking for a way to heal Lin Tianhu and the others. Black Jade Intermittent Cream. Soon, a prescription popped up in David's mind. David looked at it and found that the medicinal materials he needed were not rare medicinal materials, and he could find them if he worked hard. It's just that David's current strength is needed to refine this medicine. It's not enough, you need the help of Shenengding. However, Shenengding is not around now, and can only be refined after David returns to the Medicine God Valley. Palace Master's son, I can cure them. I will give you a prescription now, and you will prepare me the necessary medicinal materials as soon as possible. As David said that, someone took the pen and paper and began to quickly write the needed medicinal materials. After writing, Sun Simiao took the prescription without stopping, and went straight to prepare it. David looked at Lin Tianhu and Chifeng and said, You two lie down, I will cure you, and I will definitely avenge the other two of you. After David finished speaking, he turned around and left. Lin Tianhu and Chifeng signaled desperately with their eyes, trying to stop David, but unfortunately they couldn't speak, and David still walked out of the ward. Mr. Chen, where are you going? Bai Zhantang chased out. Where are those two people? David asked coldly. In the old home. Bai Zhantang said. After listening to David, he jumped directly from the fourth floor, and then his body flashed and quickly walked towards the ancient home. Bai Zhantang and Xiao Lan also jumped down from behind. Zhao Waoqi followed after hesitating for a while. On the outskirts of Horindal, Gu Wenshan's house. Ni Sideo and Xiahedun are comfortably drinking the black tea collected by Gu Wenshan. Gu Wenshan and Bai Xiashan stood respectfully at the side, both of them were getting old, but at this time they had to serve these two masters like servants. In the realm of Wuzong, in the small place of Horindal, that is the Lord. Even if Bai Xiashan is the head of the Bai family in Kyoto, he would not dare to be disrespectful to the two of them. Master Ni, will David come back? We've been waiting for more than 10 days. Xiahedun asked Ni Sideo. Don't worry, I have inquired, this guy is a dutiful son, and now the whole world is looking for him, he will definitely hide, but now on the Mid-Autumn Festival, he will definitely come back to reunite with his family, since he made it impossible for us to reunite, then we can't make him any better. Ni Sideo said coldly. David killed his most proud disciple, but he treated Ning Yu as his son. Yes, he killed my son and made it impossible for me to reunite in the Mid-Autumn Festival. This time I will make his life worse than death. Xiahedun also gritted his teeth and said. Gu Wenchen and Bai Ziashan on the side listened to the conversation between the two, and their hearts trembled slightly. They hoped that David had escaped at this moment. But at this moment, there were footsteps outside the courtyard, and then David's figure appeared in the hall. Mr. Chen. Gu Wenchen and Bai Ziashan were all surprised when they saw David. When Ni Sidao and Xiahedun saw David coming, they hurriedly stood up, looking a little surprised. They did not expect that David would dare to find this place directly. David, you always dare to show your face. Seeing David, Xiahedun gritted his teeth. Now David doesn't have the elders of Yaoshengu to support him, so Xiahedun is no longer afraid of him, not to mention Ni Sidao is also here, David is impossible to run away. Then Xiao Lan and Bai Zhantang came in, followed by Zhao Wao Qi. Chapter 868. Xiahedun glanced at the few people who came in, his face was full of disdain. With just these people, he could kill him with a single slap. Master Ni, Master Xia, I am Zhao Wuji, the master of the Dharma Protector Pavilion in Kyoto. I don't know what kind of grievances the two have with Mr. Chen. I will be celebrating the Mid-Autumn Festival soon. I see if I can. Zhao Waoqi stepped forward and wanted to plead with David with a smile on his face. Fukyu. Xiahedun swept Zhao Waoqi away with a palm. Damn, a small pavilion master of the Dharma Protector is also worthy of talking to us? Others are afraid of your Dharma Protector Pavilion, but I'm not afraid. As the sect master of Tianwu Men, Xiahedun is of course not afraid of any law-protecting pavilion. Even if it is the Kyoto law-protecting pavilion, what can he do? He can't control him at all. This sudden slap made Zhao Wuji's face turn embarrassing and ugly, but there was nothing he could do. Facing these 100-year-old sects, their Dharma Protector Pavilion could not control others at all, and they would not give them any face to the Dharma Guardian Pavilion. I bypassed your life in Yaoshin Valley, but today you are courting death yourself. David said with a gloomy face. Looking for death? Xiahedun snorted coldly, boy, don't look at your virtues. If it weren't for the elders of Medicine God Valley, do you think we would be afraid of you? Today is your death, and no one will save you. Not you. After Xiahedun finished speaking, he punched David. Xiahedun couldn't bear the revenge of killing his son for a long time, and he wanted to smash David into 10,000 pieces. When David saw this, his body quickly retreated and went directly to the courtyard. Xiahedun thought that David was afraid and wanted to escape, and the speed of his feet instantly increased. When David's body fell into the courtyard, he suddenly punched Xiahedun who was attacking, his huge fist shone with golden light. Xiahedun was stunned for a moment, but he did not stop. Bang! A dull sound rang out, and David and Xiahedun smashed together with a fierce punch. With the strength of Xiahedun's Wuzong, this punch can instantly make David lose his combat effectiveness. However, the truth was just the opposite, only a crisp bone-cracking sound was heard, and then everyone saw Xiahedun's arm bent down at a strange angle, followed by a scream of Xiahedun. Looking at the scene in front of them, everyone was stunned. None of them thought that the dignified Wuzong would break his arm with a punch by David. This is simply incredible. Then Ni Sidao also frowned, with disbelief in his eyes. He could not have imagined that David's strength had improved so quickly in just 1 month. Although Xiahedun was only a second-rank Wuzong, he was Wuzong after all, and now even David couldn't resist a punch. Just when everyone was shocked, a crisp voice came again. David grabbed Xiahedun's other arm and broke it with force. What? The severe pain made Xiahedun scream, and looked at David in horror. He never imagined how David's strength would become so powerful, and he had no power to fight back in front of David. You broke all the bones in my hands, and today I will let you taste it too. After David finished speaking, he kicked Xiahedun and directly kicked Xiahedun's body into the air. David jumped suddenly, all the blue stones under his feet shattered, and his body was in the air. Bang bang bang! David kept hitting Ziauddin with his boxing, but at this moment Ziauddin was like a ball, letting David hit him back and forth. Blood continued to spurt from Ziauddin's mouth, and the sound of bone cracking was incessant. Looking at the scene in mid-air, everyone was dumbfounded. Chapter 869. Where is this seeking revenge? This is clearly seeking abuse. Bang! Ziauddin's body fell heavily from mid-air, and his whole body was like a pile of mud. Except for his head, he couldn't move his entire body, and all his bones were shattered by David's blow. Blood flowed out from Ziauddin's mouth and nose, and the whole face became extremely hideous. "Kill me! Kill me!" Ziauddin shouted at David with anger in his eyes, but every time he shouted, a mouthful of blood would spit out. Now Ziauddin is not as good as death, he hopes David can kill him. How could David let Ziauddin die so happily and keep Ziauddin? And finally David could use the concentrate heart art to use Ziauddin's energy for his own use. Now the aura in Longjing has almost been absorbed by David. It seems that it can't be used for a short time. It needs to wait for Longjing to recover slowly. The best way for David to practice now is to absorb the energy of others. Although this method is banned by the martial arts world, it is considered to be a technique of evil cultivation, but David can't control that much now, so many people are targeting him. David needs to increase his strength in the fastest way. Ziauddin saw that David would not kill him, so he set his sights on Nisidao. He hoped that Nisidao would kill him, and now his life is better than death. Nisidao, who cares about Ziauddin at this moment, stared at David with a pair of eyes, his brows twisted into a Sichuan character. David's strength at this time has exceeded his expectations, and they came too recklessly. "Next, it's your turn." David looked at Nisidao and said lightly. "David, it seems that Longjing has brought you a lot of benefits. No wonder so many people are looking for you, but it's not that easy for you to kill me today." After Nisidao finished speaking, he waved his hands suddenly, and a black mist suddenly swept up. At the same time, Nisidao's body disappeared. "You are optimistic about Ziauddin, don't let him commit suicide." After David's exhortation, his figure disappeared instantly. While chasing him out, David had already exuded his divine sense and determined Nisidao's position. Nisidao, who escaped from the courtyard, ran into a grove, looked back, saw that no one was chasing after him, and was a little relieved. "Damn, this David is really perverted." Nisidao cursed, he had never been so embarrassed before. But just after Nisidao finished swearing, his face suddenly changed, and then his hands were pinched, and there were words in the air, and a cloud of black mist wrapped Nisidao's body. Nisidao felt David's consciousness and knew that David had discovered him, so he hurriedly used Taoism to hide himself. But it was too late. David's figure had already appeared at this moment. After seeing Nisidao, he smashed it with one punch without the slightest hesitation. Seeing this, Nisidao hurriedly shouted, "Dragon Array!" In an instant, the black mist on Nisidao's body turned into chains, directly binding David's body, making David unable to move. "You sleepy dragon formation is useless to me." David saw that Nisidao still wanted to trap himself with the trapped dragon formation, so he sneered. "I can't trap you, it's good to drag you for a while, then I'll have escaped long ago." Nisidao did not intend to use the trapped dragon formation to trap David. After all, when he was in Yaishan Valley, the trapped dragon formation could not trap David, let alone now. The current David's strength cannot be set in the same day. "Drag me for a while." David raised the corner of his mouth, and the concentrate heart technique ran quickly. Those chains of evil spirits were instantly absorbed into the body by David. Nisidao saw the scene in front of him, and the proud expression instantly solidified on his face. Chapter 870. Nisidao, who felt bad for a while, turned around and performed the Dao method, and fled forward. "I still want to run." David stretched out his hand and took out the dragon-slaying sword, and the sword slashed forward. An incomparably sharp sword energy went straight towards Nisideo, and all the trees along the way were cut off in unison. Nisideo felt the danger behind him, and hurriedly turned around to avoid the sword, but his arm was still scratched by the sharp sword energy, and blood was flowing. Looking at his wound, Nisideo gritted his teeth, and suddenly shouted angrily. The ground began to tremble, and crystal skulls unexpectedly emerged from the ground. There were a total of 9 skulls, constantly spinning around Nisideo's body, and a cloud of black mist emerged from the skull's mouth, which was directly sucked into the body by Nisideo. It turns out that you are an evil cultivator. Seeing this, David snorted coldly. This guy has always been very good at hiding, and often shows people in Taoism, but he doesn't want to be an evil cultivator. It seems that these evil cultivators have all worked hard to hide their identities. It doesn't matter if I'm an evil cultivator, because you're going to die soon. As Nisideo said, his body swelled like he was inflated, more than 2 meters, looking down at David like a giant. 9 heads attack! Nisideo shouted angrily, and the 9 skulls then made a clicking sound, and then turned into countless fragments and shot towards David. These skull fragments, under the sunlight, exuded a cold air, and countless fragments directly wrapped David, leaving David nowhere to escape. Nisideo knew that David had the ability to absorb evil spirits, so this time, there was no evil spirit in the fragments. Facing the blasted bone fragments, the corner of David's mouth outlined a contemptuous arc. This time, David's flesh was stronger than ever. He just took this opportunity to test the strength of his flesh. I saw David's body trembled slightly, and then a golden light radiated from his whole body. Even David's fists radiated golden light, and the exposed skin instantly turned into a golden look. At this moment, David like a golden man. Seeing David's sudden change, Nisideo's eyes showed a hint of surprise. Ding ding ding! Soon, those extremely hard and powerful pieces hit David's body, and the pieces fell apart, but David's body was not hurt in the slightest. Nisideo's face became extremely ugly, and his mouth was open to swallow an egg. Each of these 9 skulls is the skull of the peak of the Great Master. It was Nisideo's trick to deceive, and then took the opportunity to absorb the strength of these people. You must know that the bones of the peak of the Great Master's strength are as hard as bullets, but at this moment, even Chen not a single bit of flat fur can hurt. David, how about you and I stop now, and I will never trouble you in the future. Nisideo looked down at David and said. I want to stop now, but it's too late. I'm going to break all your bones, and then absorb all your mana. David said coldly. You. Could it be that you are also unable to cultivate evil? Nisideo looked at David in surprise. Just now David was able to absorb evil spirits, but Nisideo felt that something was wrong. Now David can still absorb other people's mana. What is this not evil cultivation? I'm not as shameless as you are, and today I will kill the people. After David finished speaking, the dragon-slaying sword in his hand began to burn into flames. You're so crazy, do you think you're going to kill me today? After Nisideo finished speaking, an ancient character suddenly appeared in the palm of his hand. The character shimmered with light and was dazzling, which compared the light of the sun.